In this video, we're going to make our very first Java application. We're going to make an application called Hello. In computing terms, it's been a tradition that the very first program you create in a new programming language performs a simple function. It just prints out a message that says Hello World, nothing more or nothing less. The idea here is just to show you some of the really basics of the language. Think of it as a place to start. So right now we need IntelliJ IDEA opened up, and you can see that I've got that open on my computer. So if you're actually watching this video, I suggest you actually follow along and type what I'm typing and do the actions that I'm doing in the videos, because you'll learn a lot more than by just watching the videos. So assuming you are following along, you want to start by coming over here and clicking on Create New Project. Now that brings up a rather intimidating looking screen, but once we get to it, it really isn't as bad as it looks. The Community Edition and Ultimate Editions of IntelliJ will give different options on the screen. You'll find that if you're running the Ultimate Edition, you get more quote-unquote stuff, and that's because it's the paid version. But in this case though, all we need to do for both editions is just come up here and click on Java in the top left-hand corner, because we're telling IntelliJ IDEA that we're going to be using Java. Now up here, if you've installed the JDK in the previous videos in this section of the course, you should have an option here for the version of Java. In my case, I've got a few project SDKs because I use this computer for multiple courses. I'm going to come down here and select 11, which is Java version 11. But more than likely, if you haven't used this computer for development before, you'll find that it'll only have Java 11. But if you were one of the few people who needed to use JDK 8, as I explained in the Windows JDK video, then you may have JDK 8 there. And just another thing to point out, that if you're watching this in the future when JDK 12 or higher has been released, it's okay to have a higher number as well. Basically, the last stable release, in this case I'm using Java 11, would be the one to select. Now, if you don't have a project SDK showing here, in other words, you've got no SDK or there's nothing to select when you click it, then what I suggest you do is go back and check the video, both the JDK installation video and also the IntelliJ installation and configuration video, because probably what's happened is you've missed a step there in configuring the Java Development Kit. And that's all explained in the video in this section of the course for your operating system. So refer to that if you don't see anything in there. But in my case, you can see I've selected Java in the top left-hand corner, and under Project SDK, I've got JDK 11 or 11, Java version 11 showing on the screen there. So at this point now, I can come down here and click on Next. We've now got an option here where we can create a project from a template. Now we will be using this option a lot in the course, but for now I'm going to leave that unchecked because we're going to create a brand new project from scratch rather than getting IntelliJ to do any of the work for us. So I'm going to leave that unchecked and click on Next. So now that we've done that, it's asking us for the project name and the project location. Now project name is just any name we want to assign for the project. I'm going to, instead of leaving it as untitled, I'm going to type hello space world. Note that I've actually typed that with a space between the words hello and world. Generally speaking, it's not a good idea to use spaces in project names or project names, or particularly in path names as well. Computers, depending on your operating system, can run into difficulties. So what I suggest you do is generally with your project name, come back here like I'm doing, I'm going to click on backspace so that the whole word is there, hello world, without any spaces. Now you can come down here and click on more settings, and it gives you more details about module names, content routes and so forth. At this stage in the course, you don't really need to know any of that. We'll talk about that when we need to later in the course. So I'm going to close that part down now. Now the only other thing here is the project location. What I suggest you do is find a good location that you'll remember to put your programs. And what we're going to do for every program we create in this course, we're going to put it in its own subfolder. Now you can see here that I've got a Python's project folder showing, and that's because I've been creating videos in IntelliJ for Python. IntelliJ also works with Python as well as Java, but I'm going to change the location. And just another thing to note here is that if you're on Windows or Linux, you'll find that your project location will look different. In particular, if you're on Windows, you'll see probably something like C:\users/ and whatever the username is that has been assigned or set up on your computer. and then a location, perhaps the documents folder or something like that. But in my case, I'm on a Mac, so I'm seeing it in the Mac format. But I'm going to change this project location because I obviously don't want to save Java programs in a Python's directory. So I'm going to come over here and click on these three little dots, the ellipsis, and I'm going to change the folder. So I'm going to go to my desktop. And what I'm going to do is create a new folder. I'm going to call this Java folders. Java programs, I should say. And I'm going to click on Create. Then I'm going to click on Open. Now notice when I've done that, the project name is still Hello World. The project location is Java Programs. Now we don't actually want that because what will happen is the first project will be saved into the Java Programs folder, but you probably heard me mention that we want a separate folder for each of our projects that we're going to be creating in this course. So what I'm going to do is come back here and click on this again. I'm going to click on New Folder again, and I'm going to type Hello World. Then I'm going to click on Open again. So what we've done now is we've got a project name, Hello World, and we've got a location called Hello World. So in other words, we've created a subfolder for this particular project. And that'll mean that as we go through the course, any projects we create will be in the Java Programs folder in a subfolder called and whatever we've typed for the project name. So again, you'll need to change that to whatever the path is for your Windows computer. A desktop could be a good location, or perhaps somewhere in your Documents folder. Okay, so at this point we're now done. I can click on Finish, and IntelliJ will start the process of creating the project that we've asked it to create, in this case our Hello World project. Notice down the bottom right hand corner we've got a progress bar there and it's indexing. So this will happen the first time you set up a project on your computer. And you can see that it was relatively quick, and that's because there really wasn't a lot that needed to be done. Alright, now what you may find will pop up for you the first time you use IntelliJ is a tip of the day. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to come up here and click on Tip of the Day. You may see something like that, and notice that I've got the checkbox turned off, so it doesn't come up for me automatically, but by default that will show. So if you see Tip of the Day, you can check it to turn it off, but I recommend you check some of these out because they'll actually give you some good information on how to get around and use IntelliJ. You will learn a lot about IntelliJ as you go through this course, as you see me using various aspects of it. The tip of the day can be a good way to go. But I'm going to make sure that's unselected, or not checked. Click on Close. Alright, so we've got our project open now. We can see down here we've got this project window, and we've got this window here which currently hasn't got anything in it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on this little arrow or triangle, and notice how that's opened up the details of the project there. And notice that we've got these various files, and we'll talk more about those later. But the one that we're interested in right now is this SRC, and it's got a picture of a folder there, so it's telling us that it's actually a folder. Now in computing terms, SRC is an abbreviation for source, and that's going to be the folder within our project that we're going to create our Java programs. So I'm going to right click that, click on New, and I'm going to select Java class. Now, don't worry too much about all these options. You might be a little bit overwhelmed by just how many options have popped up there. As we go through the course, we'll actually be using some of these ones, a lot of these options, well certainly a good portion of them, and you'll understand what they are and how to use them. For now, the only thing we need to do is select New, which you saw me do when I right-clicked the source folder, and select Java class. And in case you're wondering what a Java class is, that's something else we'll talk about more in detail as we go through the course. Keep in mind with a lot of these things, Java is a complex language. This course is over 75 hours long. So consequently, we can't hope to learn everything about Java in a single video. But rest assured that as we go through the course, all these details will be explained so that you really understand the workings of Java and what all the various terms mean. Alright, so at this point, we've got an option on the screen there. It's asking us to enter a name for our new class, our new Java class. So we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to type in the name of the class as Hello. Hello, noting that I've typed it with a capital H, and that's a convention in Java for a class name to start with a capital letter. But again, more on that as we go through the course. Then I'm going to click on OK, or I could have just pressed Enter. And notice now that we've got something changed on the screen here. We've got something over here now. You can see we've got hello.java showing and some code. But also down here now, if we open the source folder by clicking on the triangle, notice we've got this hello there, and we've got this little C with a blue circle to denote that this is a class that has been created. Alright, so let's continue on now in our quest to print hello world. We're going to start typing some code to achieve that. So I'm going to click my cursor at the end of this first line, and I'm going to press enter there, or your return key. And notice when I do that, the IDE IntelliJ gives us some space. And also note that it's automatically indented the code for us so that we can start typing. And that's a good idea to keep those indentations correct because it makes the code easier to read. But we will talk about that more in the future. So what we want to do now is enter some code. So to do that, I'm going to start typing. I'm going to press enter one more time to space it out a bit more. Then I'm going to type public. And notice when I'm typing, IntelliJ is trying to be helpful to us, and it's actually finishing words for us. And if we were happy that that was what we wanted to use there, the word static, I could press enter. And notice when I did that, it added the rest of the word for us. And I type void, and I'll go through these terms shortly. Public static void, then we're going to type main. So I'm making sure there's a space between them. Then I'm going to add a left parentheses. And note that when I added a left parentheses, IntelliJ automatically added the right one. I'm going to type string with a capital S. Then I'm going to put in a left to right square bracket. These ones here, space. Then I'm going to type args. And notice that we've got the right parentheses. We can either arrow past that or we can just type the right parentheses again. Space. Then I'm going to enter a left curly brace. And you can see that the right curly brace was added automatically by IntelliJ. Then I'm going to press enter. Now you're probably wondering, what is this code? You've just typed public static void main. Again, we can't do everything in one video, but essentially what we've defined here is a common entry point for Java so that we can run some code in it. So we'll be talking more about what's public and static and void. You'll understand what all that means in later videos. For now, make sure you've typed it exactly as I've typed it. Now, if you type public, for example, with a capital P, notice that suddenly it's highlighted in red. So that if you see anything in red like that, that's generally telling you you've typed something wrong. Either you've made a typo or you've used uppercase instead of lowercase, or vice versa. And you can see what the error is for anything in red by hovering over it. In this case, it's telling us that it can't resolve symbol public. So clearly it's telling us that there's an error there. So I'm going to change that P back to a lowercase p. And you'll find that as you're typing in code in Java, actually in most programming languages, you need to be very concise and type things exactly. You can't use uppercase when the computer expects lowercase. All right, so at the moment we've defined the entry point for our program. But what we haven't done yet is we haven't entered the command to actually print out a message. So to do that, I'm going to come down over to here, go to the end of the line, which I normally do, and press enter. That's a good way to make sure that your code gets indented. I'm going to press enter again. Then I'm going to type in this code, system. Now notice that I typed SY and system's come up automatically, so it has to be in uppercase, the capital S, dot, out, dot, print, L. And notice when I typed print L, it's given us an option to print ln and then the left and right parentheses. I'm going to press enter there. Then I'm going to arrow back, pressing the left arrow, and put a double quote in there. Noting that when I entered one double quote, IntelliJ again helpfully added the second one for us. I'm going to type hello, comma, space, world, and exclamation mark. And notice that what's in double quotes is also in green. So the good thing about IntelliJ is that it will actually show you where you've made mistakes. If I delete one double quote there, you can see straight away we've got a red curly brace there, a red curly error showing rather. And if I hover over that, illegal align end in string literal, not really the most helpful message, but it is telling you there's something wrong. And if you have a really close look at that, you can see, oh, hang on, we've missed a double quote there. So I could go back and add my double quote and the error disappears. So when in doubt, double check the syntax of what you've typed, because the chances are if you see a red error like that, you've made a typo somewhere. Okay, so at this point now we've typed in the code system.out.println, or println for short, print line, and that's actually the command in Java to print something out. Then we add parentheses, and then in double quotes we put the message that we want to output. And again, as I've mentioned a few times now, you'll learn more about these commands in detail, or these keywords, as we work through the course. For now, just keep in mind that that is the command to print something out. So we've instructed the computer, or we've told the computer that's what we want to do, but how do we get it to invoke it, or how do we invoke this now to get it to actually run our Java program? Well, it turns out that's pretty simple. We just come into here and right click, and we can come down here and click Run Hello Main. But just a word though, make sure you check where your cursor is, because if you come down here outside of the last right curly brace there and right click, sometimes the option to Run Hello Main won't show up. So usually what I suggest you do is make sure you're actually in this little main area, somewhere in there, anywhere in there, and right click and select here Run Hello.main. We do that, we give it a moment. You can see down the bottom left hand corner, we've got this long line of blue output, which is the command that IntelliJ IDEA has sent to the JDK or to the Java runtime to run our program. And in black there is our message Hello World. That's what we've told the computer to output. So we've successfully managed to achieve our goal of printing Hello World. We've also got this option here, or this output here, that was generated not by us but by the program to say process finished with exit code 0. In this case, exit code 0 means that it wasn't an error. But again, not something you need to worry about too much at this point in time. All right, so we're pretty much done now. What I'm going to do though is give you a quick challenge. Now, as you go through this course, as we type code, from time to time, I'm going to issue with a challenge. And the idea of a challenge is to challenge you to solve a particular problem to help you understand things better. Because in my experience teaching people how to program, if you're actually having to think about things and do things yourself, you tend to learn a lot faster. So the challenge for you now is how would you change this program that we've created, our first Java program, to instead of printing Hello World as it's currently doing, to print Hello Tim or Hello whatever your name is. So how would you do that? So I'm going to suggest you pause the video now, make a change and see if you can change it to print out your name instead of world, and then run the program and see the output showing in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So pause the video now and I'll see you when you get back. Okay, so welcome back. Hopefully you managed to get that working. So this is how to do it in case you weren't able to achieve it. So just come in here and you put the cursor just before the end of the double quote. Now if you put it after the end of the double quote, you can also do that. But notice as soon as I do that, we get an error message. And I can still type in my name and put an exclamation mark and then a double quote and the error will go away. But it's usually better to type it in there or to select it in there first, because then you haven't got an error at all. Either way, you want to change that, as I've done now, to Hello Tim. And then to print the output again, because at the moment we've still got the previous output, we just come out here, right click and click on Run Hello Main. Note also though, once you've run the code for the first time, you probably may have noticed that the green arrow has now an option up here. We can click that to run our code. We can also click either of these green arrows to run our code as well. So I'm going to click this one, which is just an alternative way to run, the same as right clicking. And this time we've got the output, Hello Tim. All right, so that's it. We've managed to achieve our first goal, which was to get the Hello World output showing on the screen. And then we printed out a second example of printing out our name as well. So that's the very first basic Java application. In the next video, what I'm going to do is walk you through some of the basic functions within this IntelliJ IDEA editor, just so you understand the various parts of the screen and how to move some of the windows around depending on the amount of screen real estate you've got on your computer. Just to help you become a little bit more familiar with IntelliJ. So I'll see you in the next video.